Welcome back everybody to Pop's Antique Tractors. Today I'm working on a 7520 air conditioning unit, and it was really bad shape. I bought this tractor a couple months ago, and nothing in the AC worked. Even the belt was disconnected off of the compressor. So I gotta clean all that up. I've washed all the evaporator and condensers out, took everything apart in the cab. I didn't take apart any of the lines, the refrigerant lines, because there was refrigerant in it, and the compressor looked like it had been changed out not very long ago. But the clutch was all bad on it. It had overworked itself and heated up and ruined the clutch. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to repair the clutch on the compressor. And on this instance, I don't have to refill any of the refrigerant at this point that I know of. I might have to add a little bit, but anyway, I'll show you the specifics of what's going on here. So here I am on top of the cab, and I took the cover off to expose the evaporator and the cooling fans. And I've taken the cooling fans apart as much as I could and cleaned out the bushings. It doesn't have bearings in there, but I took out the motors apart. There's a couple bolts on each side, if you can see down in there, that hold the motor together, and I took that apart and pulled both ends off of the armature and cleaned up the bushings and put a little grease in there and put them back together. And then I got some new circuit breakers and a new solenoid on and off for the cooling fans, and washed all this out. Of course, I don't know how many years it's been since it has been cleaned out, but the evaporator was completely filled with dirt, and so got that all cleaned up. And now we'll go inside the cab and show you what happened in there. So here is in the top of the cab. I took out all the old installation and got that all cleaned up, and here's the controls for the air conditioning and the heater and the blower and the wipers, and everything looks good in here. The controls, circuit breakers, and everything look good. I took the fans out, which are up in here, and they roll pretty good and they run pretty good. So I didn't need to do any more with those other than just clean them out. But on the front side, underneath the condenser, it's got this tray, of course, that catches the condensation. And I took that all out and pressure washed out the condenser, so to get that all cleaned up. And then I'll put a new air filter in the front here. And as you can see, the line up in here still has the tag on it from when they replaced it. So it's not very old of lines, refrigerant lines. So I'm going to try to make it work with those lines and fill it back up if it needs some refrigerant. But another crucial point to this is the drain tubes from the condensation tray. These were all plugged up, and they go down in the B post of this cab, clear through down to the floorboard, and then drain out the bottom. And they were all plugged up, so it wasn't draining the condensation off. And there's one of those on each side. So make sure you get all those cleaned out. And they go down along the B post and through the floorboard there. And make sure that they're all good shape. And then it looks pretty good shape up in here with all the wiring that's here. So I think it's probably going to run pretty good. Now we'll go outside and look at the compressor. And now we're outside, and here's the compressor. I have fitted on the new clutch. I put on a pulley and a clutch. The pulley, the belt was, or the bearing was somewhat loose. It could probably work again. You could probably clean that face up, though it is a little rough. But the clutch had come apart, and so I think what the story was on it is that they didn't clean they put on a new compressor and refilled the lines, put the new lines on, and they didn't clean out the evaporator condenser, or the air filter up in there was completely plugged up. I had to just throw it away. It was just in there for good. So I think if you're going to get your air conditioner working good again, you're going to have to do all the work to take the top of the cab apart and make sure all the elements are clear of debris and get those cleaned out before you can expect your AC to work very well. But as you can see, that compressor goes up in here, and the belt was still on it. They had it tied up with a zip tie so it wouldn't get caught. So apparently when the clutch had come apart, they took the belt off and tied that back so it wouldn't get caught anymore, and that's the way it was for quite a while since I got it. But anyway, I'll show you how to pull this clutch off and reinstall it. That's kind of a tricky part of the compressor, so we'll set up and get that done. Okay, I've set the camera up so you can watch me work on the clutch part of the compressor. As you can see, you need about 20 to 30 thousandths gap between the clutch and the pulley. So when it disengages, it has a little space in there to freewheel. But it's impossible to work on these unless you have a correct puller for them. So make sure you spend a couple bucks and get the pullers right. It'll pull off everything. So you screw that in, you get the right arbor. Here, I'll take it back off. In the kit I have, it's got several different arbors. So you can, it's kind of a universal kit that you can work on many different compressors, but you need to have the correct arbor that threads into the clutch hub, and tighten that up in there. Snug it in, and then with your bolt on the inside that goes up against the compressor shaft, make sure everything's lined up. Let's see, I don't think I took the nut off yet. That's important to do. For that, I've got a smaller impact wrench. That is kind of a light duty shaft in there, so you don't want to get a big old impact wrench on there and twist that off. So just something kind of light duty so you don't ruin the shaft. And now to come off a little easier. Okay, there's the clutch with the keyway in it. Now the pulley, I put on a new pulley because I had one, I guess, but you can just put a big puller around here up to your shaft and pull that off. It doesn't pull off very hard, but there is a snap ring you got to take off here first. So make sure you take the snap ring off and then pull the pulley off, or you can change out the bearing on the pulley. If the pulley groove is good and the face of it you can clean up to be very true, then you can replace the bearing in it and then replace the whole pulley back on the compressor. But I'll pull the camera around here a little bit. As you can see, there's a snap ring in there that holds that on there. Okay, so I'm ready to put the clutch on. I need to get that keyway out of there, or get the key out of there, and place it on the shaft about halfway, and then line up your keyway with the key. Make sure it's in there, and then the installation tool right here it screws on the end of the compressor shaft on the inside in there, because you don't want to pound on this to get that on, because you will damage the compressor doing that. So I'm going to torque that on just a bit so it holds. And then we'll turn on the pressing nut. And then push it on. Now you want to have between 20 and 30 thousandths gap between the clutch facings, because when it disengages you want to have the outer clutch facing away from the pulley facing so you don't create any sparks or wear. There's supposed to be just a little bit of gap in there. You don't want to have too much, just enough for everything to clear when it's disengaged. Like right there, as you can see, I've got too much gap right there now. You're going to overwork the springs on the clutch when it engages and disengages, and you'll break those springs if you have too much gap. And then you want to take your installation tool off. And look in there to see how the surfaces are. I think there is, you can get some little spacers to go on the shaft in there to get your right clearances. But this one's looks like it'll be just about right when the nut is tightened up. It's crucial to have this gap in here correct. Too much and you'll overwork the springs on the clutch, and too little you'll create friction between them when the compressor is disengaged. Okay, right now I'm gonna get it installed in there on the tractor, hook up the belt, put tension on the belt, get everything correct. And I also put on a new wiring harness on here. The old wiring harness, it was jerry-rigged, and so I got another wiring harness with a new circuit breaker here. This will open up if the unit gets too hot, and it'll also regulate it in the meantime. But once it opens up, you have to get a new plug-in, because it's only a one-time deal. So if you blow this circuit breaker, why, there's something else wrong and you have to stop and figure out what's wrong. But anyway, I'll get this installed on the tractor and see if I have any cold air. Well, I started it up and I added a couple cans of Freon, but it still wanted to not run in the green and didn't want to cool. And so I got to looking around, and this flow control valve up in here that looks like it's been replaced back at the same time they probably replaced the hoses. But the probe that actuates it was just curled up in the top up there and wasn't hooked up. So that's supposed to be connected over here on the low side, right up in here, to the low side Freon line. So I got that connected, and then it ran a lot better then after I did that. So if it runs hot and doesn't seem to want to regulate, that might be the problem. You want to check that probe. And then to get the cooling fans up on top to run, the circuit breaker was intermittent, so I put a new one on there, and that seemed to solve that problem. And now I'm going to put a little more Freon in and oil. I'm going to try the oil charge first and see if that quiets things down. And then this rubber tape stuff, I'm going to wrap that around that probe up there to insulate that so that it works correctly. And so I'm going to do that, and then I'll be back to show you how it's working.
Well, I've gained quite a bit. My gauge still says it's a little low on Freon, but I might add a little bit more. I want to see how it acts for a little bit. But my line is cool. And my compressor, you can hold your hand on it, it's not too hot. And the heat and the high side is cooled way down. And this line I couldn't touch before. That's the high side. But now that my flow valve is working, that's improved that a lot. And my cooling fans are working. And the radiator upstairs is cooling off. And the evaporator for the condenser is working. And I have condensation coming off. So everything seems to be functioning now. It might be that I just have to add a little bit more Freon and it'll be ready to go. So with that, we'll head on to the next project. I've got a 4020 that I'm replacing the hoses on the AC because it blew a hose here a couple years ago. And I'm going to put those on and see if I can get that air conditioning charged up. So I might make this part of this video also. So keep tuning in, and if you like what you're seeing and like the content, make sure you subscribe and follow. We'll see you down the road.